All right, this video is going to cover box and whisker plots, sometimes just called box plots. So in order to create a box plot, you need 5 numbers. Okay, you need 5 numbers. Okay, those 5 numbers are going to be the minimum. Okay, the minimum is your smallest number. Okay, they're going to be the maximum. That's going to be your biggest number. And then you need a median. That's going to be your middle number. And then you need what's called a Q1 or quartile 1. And you need a Q3, which is a quartile 3. So if you have 5 numbers, you can create a box plot. 5, think of your hand as a box plot. The 3 middle numbers are your box, and then your 2 outside numbers are your whiskers, okay? So we're gonna kind of look at that in these examples. So these are both box plots, okay? They're box plots because they have a box in the center, and then they have what are called these whiskers that come on the outside, okay? Your 5 numbers, again, are your minimum, your quartile 1, your median, your quartile 3, and your maximum, okay? So the box in the middle is from your Q1 to your Q3, and that box in the middle is called your interquartile range, or IQR. And I refer to this as range in the box. Okay, so IQR is range in the box. So how to find it, you're gonna take your Q3 and you're gonna subtract your Q1. So it's just like finding a range where you take your biggest minus your smallest, but now IQR, or interquartile range, is just your range inside the box, okay? And then the last thing that you really need to know about box plots is that box plots are divided with 5 numbers. They have 4 sections. So there's the section between the minimum and the quartile 1, the section between quartile 1 and the median, the section between the median and quartile 3, and then the section between quartile 3 and the maximum. That creates 4 different sections, 1, 2, 3, 4. And because it creates 4 sections, they are called quartiles. And remember, quartile is like quarter. A quarter is 25 cents. So each of these sections has 25% of your data in each section, okay? So from here to here would be 25%, so on and so forth, okay? So those are the 5 number summary for box and whisker plots. We covered our 25% in each section and our range in the box. We're gonna refer back to this as we answer some questions. So if you'll open up your notes, we have our first page, box and whisker plots. So here is our example box and whisker plot, and it says, what are the 5 numbers that make up the box plot above? So again, we know our 5 numbers are our minimum, our maximum, our median, our quartile 1, and our quartile 3. So looking at our box plot, you can see that our first number, our minimum, is going to be the one that's farthest to the left, so I'm going to label it minimum, and that is going to be right at 75. Okay, and then our maximum is the other end, our largest number. I'm gonna label it with a max, is if I draw that down, that's gonna be a 100, okay? And then we know that median, another word for median is middle. So our median is gonna be this middle section of our box. That is our median. So I'm gonna put MED, median. And we can see that that looks like it's at right about 86. So it's not quite 85. It's like right in front of 85, so it's about 86. All right, and then we have our first quartile and our third quartile. So we can see that our first quartile, over here, our Q1, is right at 80. And remember, your quartile 1 and your quartile 3 make up that box. So then our third quartile, our Q3, is gonna be, it looks like it's between 90 and 95. So I would call that probably a 92, a 92. All right, so those are the 5 numbers that make up our box and whisker plot. And now it says we can also determine the range and the interquartile range. So remember, range is your maximum minus your minimum. So we can see that our maximum was 100 and our minimum was 75. So 100 minus 75 is going to equal 25. So the range for this box plot was 25. And then remember, interquartile range is your range in the box. So I need to take my Q3 and subtract my Q1. And that's going to be my 92 minus my 80, which is going to be 12. So again, we took our Q3, so it's just the range in the box. So that's all the information that you can pull from a box and whisker plot. And then remember, each of these sections in between has 25%. So let's look at how they might ask this on the STAAR test. So it says, the list shows the growth in centimeters of 12 plants during 1 week. So it says it's 12 plants, which means I should have 12 numbers. So it says, which box plot best displays a summary of this data? So the first thing that I'm going to check for is my maximum and my minimum. And remember, this is always called a data set. So when you list out your numbers, this is your data set. So let's look at our maximum and our minimum. So our minimum is going to be 6. These numbers are already least to greatest. So I'm just going to check, is 6 my minimum for all my answers? Yes. So that doesn't help me. So then let's try our maximum. Our maximum was 14. So 14, 14, 14, 14. So my maximum and my minimum didn't help me with my box plot. So the next thing that we need to do is find the median or the middle. So remember, to find the median, we're just going to cross off each end until we find the middle number. So then I scoot over again, over again, over again. Well, in this case, we have 2 middle numbers. So because we have 2 middle numbers, okay, I have to add them together and divide by 2. So I'm going to come over here and say 8 plus 9, and then I'm going to divide it by 2. So when I do 8 plus 9, I get 17. 17 divided by 2 is going to be 8.5. So my median, which is right there in the middle of 8 and 9, is going to be 8.5. So when I check my boxes, I know it has to be the middle. Well, this median is at 9 and not 8.5. So because it is not at 8.5, A cannot be correct. All right, and then I can keep looking. This one's right between 8 and 9, right between 8 and 9. This one is also at 9, so D is also wrong. All right, so we've eliminated A and D. We're down to B and C. So the next thing that we need to check is we need to check the Q3, the Q1, and the Q3. So remember, your quartile 1 is actually your middle to the left. So I have my middle line. So I'm going to look at the left side only, and I'm going to say, what is in the middle on the left side? Well, I'm going to do the same thing I just did. I'm going to start crossing out. So 6 and 8, 7 and 8. Well, this time the middle is a 7 and an 8. So what falls between 7 and 8? 7.5. And again, if you didn't know, you could add them together and divide by 2, and you would get 7.5. So I'm looking at answer B. Well, you can see answer B, the first quartile, is at 8. Well, we know that's not right. It's supposed to be between 7 and 8 or at 7.5. And then if we check here, this one, right between 7 and 8, so C is the best answer. So that's how we use our 5-number summary to kind of go through and match box plots. So let's look at our next STAAR question. Our next STAAR question says the box plots summarize the attendance for the spring musical and the fall musical. Each musical was performed for 6 evenings. Which statement best describes the data? So we're just going to go through each answer and see if it goes with the box plots. So the first question says the range for the fall musical. So we know range is biggest minus smallest, and they only want for the fall musical. So looking at the fall musical, it looks like my maximum is about 225 and my minimum is 140. So to find that, we say 225 minus 140, and that does in fact equal 85. Okay, so that is a true statement and the correct answer. Okay, so I don't need to go through any of the other answer choices. If you wanted to check them just to make sure, you could, but A is already a perfect answer. All right, question 3 says, students recorded the amount of liquid in fluid ounces each of them drank in one day. So this time we just have one box plot. It says, which statement best describes the data represented in the box? So it says half of the students drank from 78 to 114 fluid ounces. So I know half is considered 50%. And we know that each of these sections has 25%. So between each section, 25%. So half, I would need 2 sections, and it says from 78 to 114. So 78 is going to be here, and then 214 is going to be here. So if I'm looking at that, is that half? Is that 50%? Well, I have 25% here and 25% here, so that's looking like a pretty good answer to me. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and check the others. So it says the greatest number of students drank from 30 to 78 fluid ounces. So 30 is going to be here, and then 78 would be in the middle. So that's not the greatest number, because that would be just half again, right? 25 and 25. The greatest number is not necessarily true, because that's actually just 50% of our data. So we don't feel like B is correct. C says the data represented 78 student responses. Well, in a box plot, you cannot determine the total student responses. We have no idea how to determine that from a box plot. We don't have enough information. So because of that, we cannot determine that. That cannot be a correct answer. And then D says the mean number of fluid ounces that the students drank is 78. So again, we cannot determine mean from a box plot, so D cannot be correct. Remember, the only things we can determine from a box plot are minimum, Q1, median, Q3, maximum, and then you can find your range and your interquartile range. So our best answer for this question has to be A. All right, and that is box plots.